F-14 Tomcat vs F-18 Super Hornet, which one would better in combat? What the two aircraft F-14 and F-18 have in common is that they both feature some of the most famous aircraft in the U.S. Navy inventory. Until 2006, the wing king of naval aviation was the F-14 Tomcat. The legendary plane on September 22 of that year made its last flight. Since then, the backbone of every U.S. carrier air wing is the F-18 Super Hornet. Although it was retired from the U.S. military service, the F-14 is still in service with the Iran Air Force. However, this does not focus on the outcome of an eventual close encounter between Iranian Tomcats and American Hornets. It is just a comparison between two fantastic flying machines. So which aircraft would better in combat? The question, of course, it's very difficult to answer. It depends on the way you see it and may significantly vary from pilot to pilot. However, some assumptions can be made in accordance with the most widely known characteristics of both weapon systems. A comparison between the Super Hornet and its predecessor Tomcat. If the mission is strictly fleet defense, the F-14 was a perfect platform. In fact, the 6 wing-mounted pylons of the Super Hornet, or the 4 of the Hornet, impose a higher drag on the F-18 that couldn't match the Tomcat performance as a very high-speed interceptor. Indeed, the Tomcat is known to be a very fast airplane, with great sustained energy performance and, since it carried a great quantity of fuel which gave it a good endurance, the F-14 was also very good for high-speed strike missions. Furthermore, while the F-14 was an older aircraft in which lack in some newer technologies with the F-18 Super Hornet, it is a more modern airplane with newer equipment, easy to maintain, a great advantage in times of budget constraints. In close air combat, the F-18 Super Hornet is much maneuverable, with a good authority at slow speed and high angle of attack, and, even if it lacks the AIM-54 Phoenix for the long distances in BVR, beyond visual range missile, engagements, it has got the JHMCS, Joint Helmet Mounted Cueing System, and the AIM-9X Sidewinder for the dogfights which the F-14 didn't integrate. In forward air controller, airborne mission, both aircrafts have some strengths and weaknesses. While the Tomcat had a greater on-station time than the Super Hornet, the F-18 has an integrated cockpit and for air-to-ground missions has the capability to carry not only laser-guided bombs and joint direct attack munitions, but also high anti-radiation missile and joint standoff weapons which the F-14 could not carry. Still, the F-14 could carry a reconnaissance pod whereas the F-18 can fly as a buddy refueled. Anyway, thanks to its 11 weapon stations, the F-18 Super Hornet is more flexible than the Tomcat and it can carry a larger array of air-to-ground ordnance. So the F-18E/F is a great aircraft and a very versatile strike fighter. Still, it's a legacy Hornet evolution and it's not as revolutionary as the F-14 was when it entered the active service in the 70s, as the most experienced Tomcat driver, Captain Dale Snort Snodgrass, once said. And, although it was an old plane, according to a female U.S. Navy RIO, radar intercept officer, the F-14 was also a cool aircraft. The Super Hornet is a wonderful jet, and it is only going to get better. But it will never be cool. The Tomcat was cool. I know when I see it. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe.